Most of us out there have long forgotten the disaster that was the Lord of the Rings, the Rings of Power, the Ring-a-ling-a-ding-dong, absolute embarrassment of a show by Amazon. The prevailing issue, of course, was the absolute disrespect to the source material and an overabundance of getting woke. The show was ridiculously over the top. Galadriel was an unlikable character on screen and in real life. And my friends, Amazon hid the ratings. They came out and said, "Oh my God, 10 bazillion people watched the opening episode. It's the biggest show in the history of all histories of ever and ever that was a woman was in," or something like that, right? Well, now we know that of the people that started the show, people were willing to give it a chance, right? 63% of all viewers didn't even finish the show. They lost over 60% of their viewers since Jump Street. It was a catastrophe. It is Batwoman levels of audience running for their lives from a terrible show. Most Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power viewers didn't bother finishing the show. New data indicates the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power viewers never finished watching the series. The Prime Video original tells the story of the Second Age of Middle-earth, chronicling Sauron's rise to power prior to the events of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. The series have been criticized for slow pacing. Yes, that was bad. As well as inaccuracies to Tolkien's writings about Middle-earth, though its massive scope received plenty of praise. According to The Hollywood Reporter, though, viewership for The Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power may reflect the critiques, with only 37% of viewers finishing the series domestically. The series completion rate overseas was only 45%. However, that still indicates less than half of those who started watching The Rings of Power even bothered finishing it. This, coupled with the series' lack of any kind of awards recognition, does not bode well for the show's future. Despite The Rings of Power viewership being considered a success by Prime Video, the fact that less than half of viewers seem to finish the series after starting to watching it is concerning. I mean, concerning? Are you joking? This is like catastrophic. This is like fire everybody and grovel to the fans because they spent billions on this. Billions on this. Despite unfavorable viewership numbers, Season 2 of the fantasy series promises to have more going on than Season 1, with showrunners J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay confirming The Rings of Power Season 2 will have a faster pace. The upcoming season is expected to have a multi-episode battle, which may address the lack of excitement critics felt for Season 1. Though it remains to be seen if viewers who abandoned The Rings of Power will give Season 2 a chance. It appears that upcoming episodes will address what people didn't like about Season 1. Absolutely incorrect. The overwhelming, prevailing issue with Season 1, based on what I saw from feedback, was Galadriel. Morfred Clark. People didn't like her character. She was ridiculously overpowered. She was a brat, demanding, unlikable. And unless you're going to write her off the show or replace her or completely change her character, how does that bode well at all? Dude, nobody is going... And by the way, look, there have been some famous shows that the first seasons weren't that great. So it's not impossible for people to come back. But I think with the level of disrespect that the fandom felt here, it makes it a little different. You know, the first season of The Simpsons being a little slow, or the first season of Family Guy, or like, you know, Family Guy got canceled if it weren't for DVD sales, probably never would have came back. There are options, you know, for these type of shows, but it's different when you've you've really enraged such a loyal fandom already. While many leaving the series unfinished isn't a good sign for Rings of Power, it's possible that a slight tweaking of the show's pacing may help bring people back. No, I don't think so. You see, there's also the possibility that many viewers tuned out after episode 1, that's probably what happened, which is common if the pilot episode doesn't entice audiences right away. Amazon still views it as a success. Well, of course they do. They don't have any other option. That's all that they can view it as. Now, after previously telling critics to shut the F up on Rings of Power, actress Morpher Clark now says, if I was on the other side, I'd also be feeling like that. Because she had this thing, anyone sending hate to my black castmates, get off my page and shut the F up. She followed up with a short video of her castmate Charles Edwards as Celebrimbor, making a hand motion that reveals the phrase, shut the F up, then captioned it in writing, who made this? It not only did Clark insinuate that critics of numerous changes of the show made to Tolkien's lore were racist, but she also demanded that her critics get silent. This is via bounding into comics. On top of this, she would attempt to defend the radical changes of the show made by making the nonsensical argument that no one could have known what Tolkien wanted or liked despite him explicitly writing it down in the novels and letters. She told Inverse, Tolkien was a really complex person who wrote a really complex world, and this idea that anyone could know exactly what he would have wanted or he would have liked, I feel, is nonsense. I disagree. However, her tune has now seemingly changed. In a new interview with Vanity Fair, Clark was asked, now that the first season has aired, how are you taking feedback on your character? She replied, because I'm a fan of this type of genre. I've read books that have turned into things that I've been like, I don't think the house would have looked like that. So I really get it. You suddenly get that people care about the lore. You suddenly care that you're suddenly pretending to understand. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. She continued, what's so wonderful about these worlds and these characters is they don't exist, and yet they do so intensely in so many minds. So I think there's an idea you can't please everyone, but also I do respect ownership of her, and I know it was on the other side. If I was on the other side, I'd be feeling like that. Clark concluded, I feel very protective about that. I feel quite protective of making sure she's safe from harm. Unfortunately, Clark has completely failed in that regard, given how the first season depicts the character. YouTuber The One Ring accurately points out how the character was twisted and warped from Tolkien's character. He explained they changed her into a character that doesn't resemble what Tolkien actually wrote. They made her a commander of armies that's fueled by anger, that's fueled by self-centeredness, self-righteousness, and bad manners. Interestingly, Clark admits Galadriel was mischaracterized in the first season, albeit she appears to tacitly justify the decision. So last season, I think her grief was so intense, her sadness was so huge. I think when you're in those points of ultimate lows, you do end up becoming self-obsessed. You can't see anything beyond this haze of misery, and now that's started to clear. As for what to expect in the second season of her character, Clark detailed, hopefully with that, she's rediscovering the beauty of life and what she was really trying to protect the whole time. So they're probably going to rewrite her character. They probably told her, like, we literally have to rewrite this character or the show's toast. I mean, they put so much on the Galadriel character being a super mega boss, taking down trolls single-handedly and all this kind of stuff. Some of the eye-rolling, ridiculous stuff that I don't know if they can really put the toothpaste back in the tube on that. I don't believe that they can. And the fact that 67%, nearly 70% of people abandon the show. Nearly 70% of people stop watching. If you had a viewership of 1 million, that means on the season finale you had a viewership of 300,000. I know it doesn't exactly work out that way, but this show is going to go down as one of the biggest colossal failures in history, or maybe the biggest comeback story ever. What do you think? I think I know what I believe. Make sure you leave a like on this video if you haven't yet, and we'll see you on Community Notes in a little bit.